"Someone's here to see you," the stranger in my living room announced when I walked through my front door 12 hours earlier than expected. I had spent 7 years building my custom aquarium installation business in Tampa Bay from nothing into something that provided luxury marine ecosystems for high-end restaurants, medical offices, and waterfront mansions throughout the region. The weekend was supposed to mark a turning point, not just for my diving certification that would expand our installation capabilities, but for my relationship with Skylar, the freelance botanical illustrator who had captured my attention 8 months earlier with her delicate watercolor sketches of native Florida plants and her dream of illustrating children's nature books that would teach kids to love the environment the way I did. I had met her at a gallery opening where her work was displayed alongside established artists, though I later learned she was working part-time at a plant nursery to afford the organic art supplies and boutique networking events that sustained her artistic ambitions. Her passion for bringing nature to life through art resonated with my own mission of creating living underwater worlds for people who would never otherwise experience the beauty of coral reefs and tropical marine life. When she mentioned struggling to afford both her studio loft rent of $1,850 and her hybrid vehicle payment of $495 while purchasing the high-quality materials needed for her portfolio development, I offered to support her artistic career financially, covering those expenses along with her art supplies so she could focus on building the body of work that would land her first book illustration contract. She had moved many of her belongings into my house over the past few months, creating a makeshift studio in my spare bedroom where she would spend hours perfecting the intricate botanical details that set her work apart from other illustrators in the competitive children's publishing market. The diving certification trip to Key West was canceled due to unexpected storm systems that made the open water training unsafe, leaving me with a rare free weekend that I had planned to spend reviewing business proposals for a major hotel chain interested in signature aquarium installations for their luxury resort lobbies. Instead, I decided to surprise Skylar by coming home early to spend quality time together, maybe take her to that new seafood restaurant she had mentioned wanting to try, the one with the floor-to-ceiling aquarium that had sparked a conversation about how my work brought wonder into everyday spaces where people least expected to encounter marine life. Walking into my own home and finding a complete stranger lounging on my leather sectional while scrolling through his phone was jarring enough, but hearing Skylar's voice drift from our bedroom with instructions to tell me she was not awake yet transformed confusion into something much colder and more definitive. The stranger, a sun-bleached blonde guy in his mid-20s wearing board shorts and a tank top that showcased an elaborate surfboard tattoo, looked up from his phone with the casual entitlement of someone who belonged exactly where he was sitting. From their shared bedroom, Skylar called out again, her voice carrying that particular tone of someone who assumed they were managing a situation they had complete control over, not realizing that her carefully constructed world of financial support and artistic freedom was about to collapse entirely. I learned his name was Jackson within the first uncomfortable 30 seconds of conversation, a surf instructor with 12,000 Instagram followers who specialized in teaching wealthy tourists the basics of paddleboard yoga and sunset beach photography sessions that generated just enough income to maintain his carefully curated social media presence. The conversation that followed revealed months of deception, weekend trips to Clearwater Beach disguised as botanical research expeditions, and evening art classes that were actually dinner dates at waterfront restaurants I had unknowingly funded through the business credit cards I had given Skylar for purchasing organic art supplies and attending gallery networking events. I implemented my disconnection strategy that same evening with the systematic precision I normally reserved for calculating water chemistry balances in complex marine ecosystems, starting with removing her access to the business credit cards that had been financing her premium art materials, boutique gallery memberships, and what I now understood were romantic excursions with someone whose entire lifestyle revolved around capturing the perfect golden hour content for his social media brand. The automatic payments for her studio loft space and hybrid vehicle lease were canceled through my banking app before I finished packing an overnight bag, followed by the termination of shared streaming services, cloud storage accounts, and the expensive digital art software subscriptions that had been costing me nearly $400 monthly to maintain her professional illustration capabilities. I crashed at my business partner Wade's waterfront condo that night, grateful for someone who had always been suspicious of Skylar's expensive taste in organic everything and her tendency to treat my networking events as opportunities to promote her own artistic career rather than showing genuine interest in the marine conservation work that drove my passion for creating living underwater ecosystems. Wade handled the marine life sourcing and transportation side of our aquarium business, maintaining relationships with sustainable coral farms and specialty fish breeders who supplied the rare specimens that distinguished our installations from standard pet store setups, and his practical approach to both business and personal relationships had made him skeptical of Skylar's financial dependence from the beginning of our relationship. He listened without judgment as I explained the situation, then helped me develop a comprehensive plan for protecting our business assets while ensuring that Skylar's access to resources that belonged to my company would be completely eliminated before she could cause any additional financial damage through her relationship with someone whose business model apparently consisted of looking photogenic on beaches while teaching basic water sports to tourists. The next morning brought a flood of panicked text messages about declined credit cards at the art supply store, canceled studio rent payments, and terminated software subscriptions, each message escalating from confusion to anger to desperation as Skylar realized that her financial security had evaporated along with my willingness to subsidize a lifestyle built on deception and betrayal. I scheduled a meeting with Ms. Rodriguez, the corporate attorney who had handled my business formation and intellectual property protections when Wade and I expanded from a simple aquarium maintenance service into a full-scale custom installation company specializing in biotope recreations that required complex filtration systems and specialized lighting arrays to maintain living coral ecosystems in commercial environments. Her legal expertise had protected our business through contract negotiations with resort developers and municipal aquarium projects. So I trusted her judgment when she reviewed the situation and confirmed that Skylar had absolutely no legal right to continued financial support since we had never married, established a domestic partnership, or signed any binding agreements that would create ongoing financial obligations beyond the voluntary support I had chosen to provide during our relationship. The panicked text messages evolved into something more calculated after 5 days of declined transactions and canceled services, when Skylar apparently consulted with Benjamin Torres, a lawyer who specialized in what his website described as alternative family law and non-traditional partnership disputes, someone who seemed to make a living pursuing creative legal theories for situations that fell outside conventional relationship boundaries. Torres sent an official demand letter that arrived via certified mail, claiming breach of implied partnership and asserting that my financial support had created a reasonable expectation of continued assistance that constituted an informal business relationship, demanding $15,000 in immediate settlement payments plus 4 additional months of studio rent and vehicle payments to allow Skylar time to transition her artistic career toward financial independence. Ms. Rodriguez reviewed the letter with the kind of professional amusement I had seen her display when examining contracts submitted by inexperienced developers who tried to shift liability for marine ecosystem failures onto our installation company, pointing out that voluntary gifts provided during dating relationships created no legal obligations whatsoever and that any attempt to pursue frivolous litigation would result in counterclaims for harassment and potential sanctions against Torres for filing baseless demands without factual foundation. She drafted a response that methodically destroyed their legal position while documenting the timeline of financial support I had provided, emphasizing that every payment had been clearly voluntary and that Skylar had contributed nothing to my business operations, intellectual property, or revenue generation that would justify claims of partnership or shared ownership in any assets, business relationships, or ongoing income streams that belonged entirely to the company Wade and I had built. Through years of specialized expertise in marine biology and custom aquarium engineering, the legal posturing continued for 2 weeks with increasingly desperate correspondence from Torres, each letter revealing more clearly that they had no actual legal basis for their claims and were hoping to extract a nuisance settlement from someone they assumed would prefer to avoid the inconvenience of defending against groundless litigation, not realizing that my business attorney was prepared to aggressively pursue sanctions and counterclaims that would make their frivolous lawsuit significantly more expensive than simply accepting that voluntary financial support during a relationship does not create binding obligations that survive the relationship's termination. I received a call from Marcus, the building manager at Skylar's studio complex, informing me that unauthorized individuals were attempting to remove expensive equipment from the space I had been paying rent on for the past 6 months, including professional easels, specialized botanical illustration lighting systems, and a high-resolution scanner capable of digitizing artwork at publication quality that I had purchased specifically to help Skylar build the portfolio needed for children's book illustration contracts. The situation required immediate intervention since Skylar and Jackson were claiming the equipment represented gifts for her artistic career development, apparently unaware that I maintained detailed purchase receipts for every piece of professional equipment I had bought to outfit her studio space with the tools necessary for creating the precise botanical illustrations that publishers demanded for educational children's books about native Florida ecosystems. I arranged for professional movers and asked Wade to accompany me as backup, knowing that his presence would provide both moral support and physical deterrence if the situation escalated beyond civil conversation, especially given his background as a former college wrestler who had maintained his physical conditioning through years of handling large marine equipment and managing the logistical challenges of transporting delicate coral specimens to installation sites throughout the Tampa Bay region. We arrived to find Skylar directing Jackson and 2 of his surfer friends in dismantling the professional lighting array that had cost nearly $3,000 and required specific positioning to eliminate shadows that would compromise the detail work essential for botanical illustration accuracy, while they loaded my equipment into a van that apparently belonged to one of Jackson's social media collaborators who specialized in beach lifestyle content creation. The confrontation that followed revealed Jackson's true character when he attempted to physically intimidate me by blocking my access to the equipment while threatening to damage the custom aquarium installation tools in my truck if I interfered with their removal of what he called Skylar's art supplies. Not realizing that Wade's calm intervention and obvious physical capabilities would immediately de-escalate his posturing without any actual violence becoming necessary. Building security arrived within minutes of my call to document the attempted theft, providing witness statements that corroborated my ownership of the equipment and my legal right to remove it from a studio space where I had been paying rent but where the leaseholder no longer had permission to authorize equipment removal, especially when that equipment belonged entirely to someone who was no longer providing financial support for the artistic endeavors it was designed to facilitate. The security documentation proved crucial when Torres attempted to claim that removing my own equipment constituted theft of Skylar's business assets, a claim that collapsed immediately when Ms. Rodriguez provided purchase receipts showing that every piece of equipment had been bought by my business credit cards and delivered to addresses associated with my personal and business accounts, establishing clear ownership that had never been transferred to Skylar through any legal mechanism that would support her claims of proprietary interest in tools she had never paid for or legally acquired through gift documentation or asset transfer agreements. Skylar's response to losing both her financial support and professional equipment involved creating a series of dramatic Instagram posts about financial manipulation by a controlling ex who had weaponized money to destroy her artistic career, complete with carefully staged photos of herself looking devastated in her now empty studio space and lengthy captions describing emotional abuse disguised as generosity that had left her trapped in a cycle of dependence that ended with vindictive punishment for seeking authentic love with someone who valued her artistic soul over her commercial potential. The social media campaign backfired spectacularly because Tampa Bay's tight-knit artistic community immediately recognized the story, since many gallery owners, botanical illustration instructors, and children's book publishing contacts had witnessed my consistent presence at networking events where I had introduced Skylar to potential collaborators, recommended her work to decision-makers, and provided the financial stability that allowed her to attend workshops and exhibitions that would have been impossible on her plant nursery income alone. Local gallery owners who had given Skylar exhibition opportunities purely because of my networking connections and financial backing quickly distanced themselves from the drama, Recognizing that her public meltdown demonstrated the kind of unprofessional behavior that could damage their reputations with collectors and other artists who expected discretion and maturity from people they chose to showcase in their carefully curated spaces. The botanical illustration community proved even less tolerant of Schuyler's social media strategy, since that specialized field depended on reputation and professionalism for securing book illustration contracts. And her decision to publicly air relationship grievances while attacking someone who had supported her career development violated the unspoken professional standards that publishers expected from illustrators who would represent their company's brands in educational children's literature. Word spread quickly through the network of botanical artists, science educators, and children's publishing professionals who formed the core audience for the type of nature illustration work Schuyler aspired to create. And her public accusations against a business owner who was well known in Tampa's environmental community for creating educational marine ecosystems began generating negative feedback that effectively blacklisted her from future opportunities with publishers who demanded both artistic skill and professional conduct from their freelance illustrators. The irony was evident to everyone except Schuyler herself. Her attempt to portray herself as a victim of financial manipulation actually revealed her willingness to damage the professional relationships and community connections that had been freely shared with her through my established network of environmentally focused business contacts, gallery relationships, and educational partnerships that represented years of building trust and credibility within Tampa Bay's interconnected artistic and environmental communities. Her Instagram follower count increased temporarily due to the drama, but the engagement came primarily from people seeking entertainment rather than potential clients, while the professional contacts who actually influenced hiring decisions for botanical illustration projects quietly removed her from consideration lists and stopped following her social media accounts entirely. I learned through mutual contacts in the beach recreation community that Jackson's surf instruction business had been struggling with seasonal income fluctuations and equipment rental debt long before Schuyler entered his life, since his business model depended entirely on tourist season revenue from paddleboard rentals, private surf lessons, and sponsored social media content that generated inconsistent income based on weather conditions, seasonal visitor patterns, and the unpredictable nature of influencer marketing partnerships with beach lifestyle brands. Schuyler's expensive lifestyle expectations immediately overwhelmed his financial capabilities, since her definition of basic necessities included organic everything from groceries to art supplies, boutique gallery event attendance that required designer clothing and professional networking expenses, and premium lifestyle choices that had been sustainable only through my business income and willingness to invest in her artistic career development without expecting immediate returns on that financial commitment. The relationship between Schuyler and Jackson imploded spectacularly after 8 weeks when he could no longer maintain the level of financial support she had grown accustomed to receiving, leading to public arguments on Clearwater Beach that were witnessed by his surf students, fellow instructors, and social media followers who had previously viewed him as a successful lifestyle entrepreneur rather than someone whose business barely generated enough income to cover his own basic expenses without supporting another person's luxury preferences. His reputation within the surf instruction community suffered immediate damage when word spread about his inability to manage his personal finances while maintaining a professional teaching schedule. Since reliable income and stable business operations were essential qualifications for instructors who worked with expensive equipment and high-end clientele who expected consistent service availability regardless of personal drama or relationship complications. The beach arguments also damaged his social media presence when several of his sponsored content partnerships were canceled after brand representatives witnessed his unprofessional behavior during what should have been working hours dedicated to providing quality instruction experiences for tourists who had paid premium rates for private lessons with someone they expected to maintain professional standards. His follower count dropped significantly as his content shifted from aspirational beach lifestyle posts to defensive explanations about temporary setbacks and personal challenges that contradicted the successful entrepreneur image he had cultivated to attract both students and brand partnerships, ultimately forcing him to abandon his independent surf instruction business and move back to his parents' house in Orlando, where he took a job at a chain surf shop that provided steady income but eliminated the flexible schedule and creative freedom that had initially attracted Skylar to his seemingly carefree lifestyle. The irony was perfect. Skylar had left financial security with someone who genuinely supported her artistic ambitions for the excitement of dating someone whose lifestyle appeared more adventurous and spontaneous, only to discover that his apparent freedom from conventional responsibility actually meant freedom from the financial stability necessary to maintain the elevated lifestyle she considered essential to her artistic identity and professional networking requirements. 8 months later, my aquarium business had expanded beyond my most optimistic projections with the opening of a second location specializing in educational marine biology programs and 3 major contracts for signature lobby installations at luxury hotels throughout the Gulf Coast, where our custom reef systems had become signature attractions that increased property values and provided unique selling points for resort marketing campaigns targeting environmentally conscious travelers who appreciated authentic marine conservation efforts. Wade had developed the marine biology education side of our business into a profitable division that partnered with schools, summer camps, and environmental organizations to provide hands-on learning experiences about coral reef ecosystems, sustainable fishing practices, and ocean conservation that aligned perfectly with my original vision of using beautiful aquarium installations to inspire environmental stewardship among people who might never otherwise connect with marine life. I began dating Rachel, a marine veterinarian who owned her own practice specializing in aquatic animal health and who genuinely appreciated my expertise with marine ecosystem management rather than viewing my business success as a resource to be exploited for personal gain. Someone who insisted on splitting dinner bills and contributed her own veterinary knowledge to improve the health protocols we used for maintaining the rare fish species that distinguished our installations from standard commercial aquarium setups. Rachel's independent success and professional expertise created a partnership based on shared interests and mutual respect rather than financial dependence. And her enthusiasm for marine conservation work made our conversations about business expansion feel like collaborative planning sessions rather than requests for funding or support that had characterized my interactions with Skylar during the final months of our relationship. Skylar remained completely blocked from all communication channels and had become entirely irrelevant to my thriving professional and personal life. While I focused on developing a major contract for designing custom reef systems at a new oceanographic research center that would showcase native Gulf Coast marine habitats for educational purposes while supporting actual conservation research that could impact environmental policy decisions affecting coastal ecosystem protection throughout Florida. The research center project represented the culmination of everything I had worked towards since starting my business. Creating beautiful marine environments that served educational and conservation purposes while generating sustainable revenue that allowed continued expansion and innovation in aquarium technology and marine ecosystem recreation. I had learned through experience that protecting business assets and choosing romantic partners who contributed value rather than consuming resources led to genuine success and inner peace. While surrounding myself with people who shared my environmental values and professional ambitions created opportunities for growth that extended far beyond individual relationships or temporary emotional connections that might interfere with long-term business objectives and personal fulfillment goals that required consistent focus and dedication to achieve meaningful results.